It is your Classic Metal Show right here on the ClassicMetalShow.com. That was a seriously smoking number called Pistoleros from the one, the only, Joe Stump, and the Reign of Terror is back. Joe Stump is on the phone with us. Joe, how are you, man?
Good. Always good. I live at Charmed Life, so I can't complain.
Sure, man. Well, Joe, you're back once again with yet another just shredding record, Revenge of the SHREDLORD. And this one comes, not that there's ever not a busy time for you, but this comes at a fairly busy time for you where you're involved in solo stuff. You've got other projects that you're involved in. You're very busy these days, don't you think?
I'm fairly busy, yeah. Yeah, or one would think anyway, you know. So yeah, I got a few things in the pipes, and this record's been out a while, but still, still working it and everything. So yeah, I got a few things, did some touring with the Ravenlord guys over the, back in the spring, and then I'm working on a couple couple different records.
Sure.
Now.
Well, let's talk about the Ravenlord project a little bit. How did you end up joining that band?
Well, I'm, just to make it clear, I'm not on the record.
Okay.
Even though they put my photo on the record, the guy playing guitar is Stefan Lindholm. He's a Swedish guy,
mm-hmm.
and I played with them a little back in Stockholm not the spring that just passed, not the summer that just passed last year,
mm-hmm.
But those guys, I guess they knew me through. I don't know where they found me, but they asked me if I was it. The singer contacted me. Sabastekin, and he asked me about if I was interested in joining the band. And then he sent me some of the tracks, and I really liked his voice quite a bit. So that's what drew me in. And there was a lot of room to play, and it was heavy power metal type of stuff. So I was like, sure.
Well,
I kind of spawned from that, and
mm-hmm.
I've got a couple different projects involving him.
Okay.
So it's kind of early in the game to talk about them, but there's one, it's not early in the game. I got one project where it's very, kind of similar, the material similar to the stuff I've done with the Reign of Terror, because I'm writing all this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a power metal thing, and it involves Saba and Craig Gruber that played bass on the first Rainbow record and played with Gary Moore.
Okay, wow, that's a solid lineup. Definitely.
Yeah, and the drummer's this Finnish guy, Mirko, he played with one of the guys in Timo Koltapelti from Stradivarius. He played on a bunch of his solo records and solo tours. So it's a solid group of guys, like you said.
Well, let me ask you, Joe, and this is no secret. You're definitely considered one of these elite virtuoso guys in the same vein, I guess. A little more classical, out of the Malmsteen-ish. I don't want to compare you to Malmsteen, but because you definitely do different stuff than him. But you get that comparison a lot. At the same time, you do venture and do a lot of different things. Is it easier for you or harder for you to jump into a band situation versus doing, Reign of Terror, where you really have full creative control over it?
Well, most of the band stuff, with the exception of the Ravenlord stuff, was already written. So when we were playing the stuff live, I just came in and played the tunes and played my own solos and stuff. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I prefer doing my own thing, and usually if it's something I'm involved in, I end up writing a fair amount of the stuff. Like with Holy Hell, I write some of the tunes, but Francisco Paloma, the keyboard player, writes, he writes the bulk, maybe like 2/3 of the stuff, where maybe I'm contributing like 1/3 of the material. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's just different, I mean, it's not hard for me to get used to or whatever, but it's just different. In some ways it's a little easier, but depending on the project, most of the time it's a lot of fun and cool and all that kind of stuff.
Sure. Now, when you work on Reign of Terror stuff, do you purposely try to write material and record music? Do you purposely make records to show new sides of yourself, or do you just you know, are you one of these guys that sits around and you always have riffs and, you know, after a year or so, it's just time to put them together and write songs out of them?
Yeah, well, I'm always coming up with stuff, and you know, a lot of times I'll just go in, I'll start playing, and then all of a sudden something comes to me, and then next thing you know, it spawns into a tune, and it could be a vocal tune, could be an instrumental tune, or I'm like sitting around watching TV, and I start playing, and next thing you know, like, you know, I'll write, you know, an instrumental will come to, you know, like half of an instrumental will come together, and I'll have to go into my workroom and document it so I don't forget it.
Right.
But I mean, I love all different kinds of schools of metal. I mean, I love, you know, Rainbow and Purple and old Gary Moore, and I also love Hendrix and Robin Trower. So I also like, you know, all different, you know, I like Accept, I like King Diamond, I like Merciful Fate. So I'm always writing all different types of things.
Sure. And do you try to get a loose concept, or at least a musical concept, from record to record?
Well, it just kind of comes together organically. I mean, the one project I got with the singer from Ravenlord and Craig Gruber, that's like, you know, the direction is fairly, I mean, it's not hard for me because it's got a very Rainbow Purple, like, Dio-ish kind of direction. So I tend to write like the power metal stuff and the vocal material stuff. I write is like that anyway. So that's easy.
Sure.
Go
ahead.
But I mean, I didn't mean to cut you off, but as far as like when I'm putting together a solo record, like the last one, it was darker, heavier. Some of the stuff more classical. On Virtual Plastic Vendetta, I had some Hendrixy tunes and some different things like that. But on this one, it was a bit less diverse, you know, and just all around heavier. So to me, it would have seemed odd if all of a sudden I had like a Hendrixy tune in the mix of the new record.
Right, definitely, man. Well, Joe, you know, as a music fan, and you know, I'm 44 years old. I think you're a couple years older than me, but we're from the same basic era, you know, of music and of rock and metal and whatnot. You listen to the music today, and it really just doesn't seem like the next generation, the current generation, gives a damn about guitar. At least they don't appreciate it, and in the popular music, they don't. I mean, so many of these bands have no soloing at all, and it's just riffs, and it's just, you know, down-tuned power chords and whatnot. As a guitarist yourself, is that disappointing to you to see that the instrument is not explored the way it was, you know, even 10, 15 years ago?
Well, I mean, that's kind of general where there are some, you know, I mean, it's tough for me to comment like that, because while I'm aware of current bands and who they are, and you know, whether it's different strains of metal, whether it's the gent stuff or more technical death metal or whatever, because a lot of my, you know, I'm on the faculty at Berkeley, so a lot of my students, guys that study with me, love all different schools of metal, so I'm exposed to it. So on some level, there is, you know, a bunch of technique and lead guitar going on, and you know, with a lot of the bands, with a lot of other bands, what you just said is true as well. So, but for me, to me, of course, guitar, metal guitar is guitar-driven music, and of course, you know, what's guitar-driven music without guitar solos? So, so you know, I agree in that sense, but it's tough for me to comment because I'm kind of wrapped up in doing my own thing, so I'm not really listening to, or if I'm going to listen to something, it's going to be something I like, whether it's, you know, Rainbow or Yngwie or Vivaldi or Rata Blanco or, you know, Deep Purple or whatever.
Right. Well, you know, you mentioned how you're a staff member at Berkeley. I mean, doing that kind of a thing and seeing so many young kids with so many different ideas that I'm sure come through. You know, obviously that's the elite school of music. So, you know, when you see these people now, do you gain inspiration from seeing the younger kids and hearing some of their ideas? Do you? I'm not saying that you would take their ideas, but I'm saying, do you gain inspiration from seeing how the music is changing, you know, right in your face? You're seeing different creative elements from bands that have not been jaded by the industry yet.
It's cool. Like when one of my students plays like a solo by one of his favorite players that I never heard of, I wouldn't necessarily say it's inspiring, but it's not. It's great to have like anything. Granted, I wish all my students shared like the kind of dedication to the instrument that I have, but it's not for everybody. So but it's great to sit with guys and have guys study with me that are the same as me, where they love guitar, they eat and breathe and sleep guitar, and they're excited about playing, they're dedicated to playing. So that's always that's always cool and makes my job there that much more enjoyable.
Sure. Now, this is a dumb question that I ask every one of you virtuoso guys, but how many guitars do you have?
Me? Probably I think at least 50 something.
Now, okay, so when you have that many guitars, I mean, how do you even know which ones to play for which thing? I mean, certainly I get that some of them are just you pick it up and it feels good, so you buy it. But I mean, for you personally, I've got to imagine for somebody that plays, and is as dedicated to the instrument as you are, that each guitar holds something that you don't feel you can do with the other guitars, or can't get the exact sound or whatever from the other guitars. So how do you keep track of what guitars to play when? Do you just sort of know, or do you have it written down, or what?
Well, I'm primarily a Strat guy, so I have many Fenders, and I have an ESP endorsement, so I have many ESP custom shop Strats and ESP Strats, so that's primarily what I play. And while they're all slightly different, they all have the same features, where they have DiMarzio pickups and scallop fretboards and locking tuners, or some have the locking tuners and stuff, and standard old school Fender style tremolos and stuff. So and while they're all different, they're all very similar. So I have certain ones that I use quite a bit live, and certain ones that I use recording, and some are in different tunings, whether I'm playing with my solo thing, or whether I'm playing with Holy Hell or Ravenlord or something else. So, and then I have other guitars that if I want to use, if I'm cutting something that's more of a heavier rhythm part and I need something with a humbucker, I have a bunch of flying V's and a couple of SPVs and stuff like that. So it kind of varies.
Very cool, man. Well, Joe, with the industry being the way it is right now, it's basically turned upside down. Why does a musician like yourself still record and put out full albums? I mean, I'm going to assume that it's not because you're looking to get rich off of the records. I just have to think that it's probably just because you're a creative guy and you need that creative outlet. Am I right in that, or is there another reason, or what?
Well, I make a few bucks. But of course, it's not financially driven. If I was dependent upon my recording royalties, for my only source of income, I'm sure I'd be in some trouble.
Right.
But so luckily I'm not. But what was I going to say? Well, I'm always playing. I'm always writing, and I'm fortunate enough that I've been doing this a while, where I have a fairly loyal and solid fan base. So people still buy my records, and I'm sure many people download them for free as well. So and don't buy them, but people either buy CDs or do it via the download or whatever. Although who knows? Revenge of the Shredlord might be the last solo record I ever make that actually comes out on CD. That format seems to be, really, definitely becoming a thing of the past.
It certainly is. And who would have thought that?
Although I like CDs myself, I like the physical product in my hand and stuff. I could put it on my, put it on an MP3 player.
Certainly, man. Well, Joe, before I let you go, I have to ask you what's known as the traditional classic metal show question. We ask this to everybody, and I'm sure you probably have at least encountered this guy. How has Lemmy from Motorhead influenced your career?
How is Lemmy? That's a very good question. Lemmy is, how has he influenced my career? Well, I mean, in one way, like a little bit of the dress kind of vibe, because I'm a huge Blackmore fan and a Blackmore fanatic, and in the early Rainbow days, Blackmore would wear those kind of evil-looking kind of Western shirts and stuff.
Right.
So, and Lemmy does the same thing. So that would be one way. Is with some of his dress vibe.
Okay.
And the other thing I really like the Maltese cross. I have a custom guitar that I've played with Holy Hell that has that has one on it. So that's another way. Some of that vibe, because I know Lemmy collects World War II memorabilia.
Mm-hmm.
So that so the Iron Cross or the Maltese Cross, that's I have a bunch of shirts with that, I have several rings with that, I have it on a few of my guitars, and what else? Also Lemmy's got a guy that customize that makes his boots for him. So I have more pairs of boots than I do guitars. So like tons and tons of like alligator boots, all different kinds of python boots, stingray. Like if I'm touring, I go to Mexico quite a bit, and I can get boots cheap there. So I'll make the promoter take me around boot shopping before I do anything. Sure.
Well, I gotta say, Joe, I think you're the first one that's ever referred to Lemmy's influence as fashion.
Exactly. Along with like his he's just so cool and just even like his rock and roll attitude, and the other thing that's cool is his dedication to he's been making records and touring, and that's all it's business as usual. Now, of course, his health is suffering, which is a shame. Maybe that's cutting into some of it, but he's a legend.
Sure, definitely. Well, Joe, you're nothing short of a guitar legend yourself. So why don't you give the plugs out where people can find Revenge of the SHREDLORD and all of your other projects and news and information on what you're doing?
Well, Revenge of the SHREDLORD and my whole back catalog's available on Amazon and iTunes. That's probably the easiest way to get it. Obviously it's on Amazon in CD format as well. Mm-hmm. And the first 3 Reign of Terror records were just also recently released on iTunes.
Great.
So just about everything I've ever done is available. And JoeStump.com, there's a Joe Stump Facebook site as well. So and that's got news and updates and tour dates and all that kind of nonsense.
Great. Well, Joe, as a tradition on the show, we always let the artist pick a closing track. So why don't you pick something from Revenge of the SHREDLORD and give us a quick story about it to end the interview.
All right. Sure. What do you have? You played Pistoleros already?
Yep.
All right. So let's see. Maybe. Why don't I'll pick Enter the Coven.
Okay, and why that one?
I don't. You know what I mean. Let's see. Enter the Coven. There's no kind of. That's a cool heavy track. That's got a bit of everything. It's almost like a King Diamond meets Yngwie kind of vibe. So and that's why I called it Enter the Coven, because the beginning of it kind of reminded me of like a King Diamond or Merciful Fate thing. Then it kicks into the heavy riff. So when I know the King Diamond fan club, because a buddy of mine belongs to it, it's called the Coven. So I was like, I'll call it that. So that's kind of how the title spawned from it.
Sure. Well, let's enter the Coven right now. This is Joe Stump right here on your Classic Metal Show.